Jennifer, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Call today's meeting to order. Jen, will you do roll call?
Tom McDonald,
Here.
Len Tucci. Jennifer Finley,
Here.
Jim Molitor,
Here.
Carol Langford, Terry Pitts, Bing Matt, Ellie Bundy, Martin Charlo, Mike Dolson,
I'm here.
James Steele Senior.
Thanks, Jen. Ellie, would you do the honor for us this morning for a prayer?
Heavenly Father, today we come before you and ask for your guidance and help us make the decisions we need to make on behalf of the membership. We ask that you be with our elders and our babies and our families and keep everybody safe and fed and healthy today. And we ask that you watch over our law enforcement personnel, our military, and just be with them as they're away from home and keep them safe. And we ask this in your name. Amen.
Love my Shelley. All right, do we have minutes? She's done them out. For 420. Yeah.
I just reset that too. Mr. Chair, motion to approve the minutes of April 25th with any corrections?
Motion by Ellie to approve the April 25th Tribal Council minutes with any corrections. Second by Len. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous? All right, we have today's agenda. We have one walk-in, two walk-ins,
Both will be in executive.
both in executive. Okay. Any other items to the agenda? Motion to approve today's agenda by Ellie. Second by Bing. All those in favor, show of hands. Unanimous. Just quickly, I want to give a couple updates. Monday at 2:30 at Missoula, we're going to dedicate a couple more signs on Grand Creek with the county commissioner and the mayor. Just a small ceremony. Those that want to go down there will be leaving the Longhouse about 1 o'clock, 2:30. And then, of course, Thursday is the Ronan Clinic dedication in the afternoon. So with that, we'll go into executive session. Okay. Open session. Oh, are they coming in? Yeah. Yes, please. Yes, they're on right now. Yeah. When you're ready. Yeah, Squawk Specia. Good morning, Shane. You got a nice looking group here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and council members. I just wanted to, kind of open the discussion with the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. And I know that, the acting comptroller, Michael Sue, can kind of talk about the office with his staff, Amar, a little bit more and kind of let you know the work they're doing and why they're here today. But with that, I think, you know, when we first heard from them, I had to go, I was like, Office of Comptroller. I know I've heard of it, but I need to go read, like, what is this again? So, so I had to refresh myself
It's
on
pretty
that as
important
well.
as far as where my money's at.
Yeah, yeah,
Pretty
yeah,
darn important. I have a lot of confidence in Michael's gonna do a good job.
yeah. Turns out it's pretty important. So, so with that, I'll hand it off to, the comptroller.
Thank you, Shane. Chairman McDonald, members of the Tribal Council, it's a real honor and a privilege to be here. So my name is Mike Sue. I'm the acting comptroller of the currency. And before I go any further, I'd like my colleagues to just introduce themselves really quickly, and then I'll just kind of help set the stage for why we're here.
Sounds perfect. Yeah, just push the mic button if you can.
Good morning. My name is Barry Whitus, and I'm the Deputy Controller for Community Affairs at the Office of Comptroller of the Currency in Washington. Very glad to be here, and thank you very much for having us.
Welcome.
Good morning. I'm Amar Askari. I'm the Director of Community Affairs Outreach, reporting to Barry. I was the point person for organizing this trip, and I worked closely with Shane. So I want to give him a shout out. He did a great job putting together a really nice schedule for us today. We're very appreciative. We're very grateful for you hosting us today. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Amar, for putting us on your schedule. Thank you.
So if you can indulge me, I'll just give a quick sketch of why we're here. Excuse me. So the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, the OCC, we regulate and supervise federally chartered banks. So that goes from your biggest banks like JP Morgan Chase all the way down to community banks. It's about 1,000 banks with about $15 trillion in assets. And so we're the primary federal regulator for those banks. My predecessors have focused on how to engage with tribal communities and how to promote issues related to Native Americans in the banking system. And so this really started with Gene Ludwig, who was several comptrollers ago, who visited, I believe, the Navajos, and to learn what are the issues in Indian country, and then how should we in Washington, D.C. bring these experiences and these perspectives back into what we do so that we are effective in both, not just for the money centers in the urban areas, and not just in rural areas, but also in reservation lands, tribal lands for Native communities. Another predecessor, Comptroller Otting, he also visited a reservation, and as part of the process around the Community Reinvestment Act, a lot of those views were then integrated into the CRA. And so I'm trying to follow in that tradition, rather than just sit in Washington and get out of Washington, come to the community, hear directly. You know, I think the CSKT is very interesting because it's a mix of, there's some challenges, there's some real successes. And, you know, what can we learn? We're here to learn and listen. What can we learn from your experiences, the things you're grappling with, how things are going, so that we can bring that back. And as we make policy, as we think about the banking system, as it evolves, to make sure that the needs of your community are being met by the banking system. That's what we're here for. And so with that, I would just like to hear both the story of the CSKT, the Flathead Reservation, just what's useful for us to know as we go about our day-to-day jobs. And I should say, I'm following on, the staff engagement at the OCC on this has been pretty dedicated and, really extensive. Folks here, folks back in Washington who really care about this a lot. And so this is, I see this as a great opportunity.
Wow, that's fantastic. There's always that catch up for us, and having access to financing and capital and home ownership. How can we? It's all tied to economic development. The personal ownership of homes and having financing available with what you have for collateral is really important. And it's always been a limiting factor because of our relationships with the federal government and trust ownership of resources. there's always little things that you always find that just didn't quite make it into some bill or some law that was an oversight. And so there's just always a collage. When I look at things, there's always a collage of those issues that need to be fixed. And I'm sure in your research today with our great staff and entities that you're going to go see, you'll discover some of those items, I hope. But it's so incredibly important for us to be able to have all the same access the rest of Americans have. And it always has been a limiting and difficult challenge for Native American tribes. And then when you look at issues that we have here today, just for us, first, you're not from here, so you don't see the growth that we've had. And it seems pretty rural and dispersed, probably, depending on your reference point of where you live. But we've had incredible growth here just recently. And that incredible growth has caused us a complete strain on our ability to our membership to even try to buy a home or be able to compete in the market that's coming here. The wealth that's coming here is overwhelming our local people. We can't almost afford to live here anymore. So it's incredible burden and I don't know what you call economic injustice that's going on. So we're being harmed all over again by opening up our reservation to homesteading or those because we can't compete. We just simply don't have the resources to compete. Our folks don't have the ability to get that kind of financing to be able to have that ability. So that's what I look at right now, just an extreme thing. I look at young people today on our reservation that can't afford to buy a home. They're not going to be able to buy a home based on what's going on. So we have to be able to be creative and think outside the box on how we can be competitive in home ownership for our membership, how we can be competitive in business development, how we can utilize the resources that the tribes have in common to the betterment of the individual tribal member for their strengths and their assets. So to be able to secure financing for starting up a new business and make that streamlined and as easy as possible for our folks. That's what I look at. I'll let other council members, if they have anything to add to that. Yeah, Shane?
Mr. Chair, I think the business side getting financed, I think that's a really important one. I think, and one of the challenges we've seen in the past has been challenges for tribal members accessing financing for a business because some of the local banks are worried about going into our tribal court system. And we have a very good court system. So trying to find a way to, we do a good job of working with them, but if there was any ways to kind of strengthen that partnership in that regard, I think that would be helpful too in future financing options for members.
I'm sorry, can you say a little bit more about the tribal core system?
Yeah, CSKT, we have our own tribal court system. So it handles misdemeanor, it has a criminal sector, and then it handles civil, has a civil arm to it too. So it would handle all the, repossession or any of those sorts of issues that would pop up. It would go into the tribal court because that would, we're on the Indian reservation. So the jurisdiction lies with the tribes for those sorts of things. So, so a tribal member would have to be brought into tribal court.
So yeah, it's recognizing that chain of custody for, the judicial system where you need to come to our court system first. And yeah, the reluctance of private banking, lending institutions to rely on that has been a extreme issue in the past. Been a little headway, but having that assurances from you would be good. That would help quite a bit.
Yeah, one of the so we have a project, we call it Project Reach, which is focused on reducing barriers to financial inclusion just generally. And it's constructed in a different way than we normally do programs. So I think typically the government sets bankers on one side and the regulators on the other. There's a little bit of a tussle about how the things are going to get done. Under Project Reach, we all kind of sit on the same side. And we put the bankers along with community groups, civil rights organizations, technology firms, and said, okay, what are the major barriers and how are we going to solve them? And we as the OCC, we just provide the coffee. We just convene them. And home ownership was highlighted just across the board. And on native lands, that was, thanks to a number of folks saying, there are really, really thorny issues here that need particular attention. You can't just, put them on a normal track, so to speak. Ownership rights, et cetera, way more complicated. And we've heard banks saying, it's just too complicated, so we don't want to do it. And so the approach was, that can't be an excuse. We're going to make it as easy as possible, as clear as possible. We're going to try to clear away those excuses so that ability is more there. And so, I mean, Mark can speak to it more. We brought together quite a few bankers, and groups to say, okay, here's what you need to know. Now, we want to build off of that because what I'm hearing from you is that's necessary but not sufficient. If affordability is a real challenge, then we have to do more than just improve awareness. It sounds like that's an important thing. And like you said, there's ways to be creative. We've got this venue for folks to kind of put some creative thoughts on the table. And if part of that is spreading the word, that's what we're here for.
Thank you, Mike. Jane, did you have something?
Yeah, I think that's exactly, that's needed because I think there's just a lot of embedded stereotypes and a lot of pause from people working with Indian people for a lot of reasons that are not justified anymore, or never have been, I should say. And so that trying to kind of break through that barrier, I think, is important because I think a lot of those lenders who were worried about, collections or repossession or any of those sorts of things going through our tribal courts, like our court system operates just like any other court system. They're going to work with lenders and people to ensure that they're protected as well.
I got to go back in time, but it's just for a lot of folks as information here. Before this reservation was open to homesteading, and before we, of course, reorganized under the Indian Reorganization Act back in the 30s, we had a business council, et cetera. But this reservation was quite thriving back then, and we had one of our members had a bank. Cavill Dupuy was a banker in Polson, and that was back when we weren't allowed legal counsel or anything. He was he used his resources from the bank to help fight on behalf of the tribes for the hydropower facility on Lower Flathead River. There was a big fight against the corporate interest in Rocky Mountain Power at that time. They tried to assassinate him a couple of times because of his involvement. And it's quite an interesting, it could be actually a great story if somebody would ever do the research and publish more of it. But that back then things were okay. We were fully empowered, and he was that town of Polson was quite a tribal center at that point in time, and economic development was easy. We had our membership doing transportation systems and hauling freight and opening up motels and everything you could conceive of. We were very, very successful. And then the Flathead Allotment Act happened, and everything was tipped upside down here dramatically. Everything was taken away from us, and we weren't under our own guidance anymore. Then, of course, the IRA came along, the Reorganization Act, and that helped bring us back a little bit. But it's been a step forward, maybe a step backwards. Every now and then we get set back. But the improvements that you're doing, the consideration that you're doing, in being here today is a critical step. I can't thank you enough, Amar, for putting this on your schedule. But just having this and seeking out information is fantastic. So I really appreciate that you're here today and meeting with all of our entities and have the opportunity to visit us. We're very proud of our homeland. We're very proud of our people. The confidence in our economic development is going to be good. We'll work hard, but if you can enable us and help us along our path, that's fantastic.
I heard some talk about small businesses and trying to streamline. So another thing that, because we've heard this as well, that it's the small businesses, the bank, small business access to small business capital runs through banks. There's just very few other avenues for that, and every barrier just adds to it just lowers the probability, right, of that happening. And one of the things that we've focused on in Washington is, can we create programs where there's both special credit given and that there's a vehicle to scale it, because often you've got scale problems. And so we've got these special credit special purpose credit programs that have been created, but they're not being used. And so one of the things we're trying to figure out is, why not? Like, what is it? Are there particular needs that here, here in this area, where there are some entrepreneurs who are like, I really want to do X and I really want to do Y, but I can't get that loan because I don't know if there's any stories there to share, or success stories, where, hey, this person had this idea and they did it, and then kind of had that flywheel of growth that everyone's hoping for. It's more than just one person or one family, but that provides those employment opportunities for others. I don't know if there's any experiences here that can help shed some light for us on how to approach this. That would be greatly appreciated.
Sunny?
Hello? Okay, I have a mortgage, and that was, I deemed illegal, because this is for you. I'll give this to you. That's a copy of our corporate charter. Go ahead, open it up here, and you'll see where I have highlighted right here. My mortgage is done with Eagle Bank, and it's done under a 1956 public law. But as you will read here, under our corporate part, that no mortgage or sale of our tribally owned land is admissible. Under Section 10, there's been no amendments to our corporate charter since it was ratified in 1936. And for 8 years now, and he's talking about our court system, I've been waiting for them to foreclose on me. They've said, we're foreclosing. So I said, well, let's go. I said, I want to see if our corporate charter and our tribal constitution, which states you cannot mortgage or sell any tribally owned land. I said, that's my stance, is the corporate charter and my constitution, where it states that you cannot mortgage or sell any tribally owned land. Well, this is not an isolated incident. What's known as the Felsman Edition, former Salish Kootenai Housing Authority Director Bob Gochi had tribal trust land removed from trust status, which is it's unallowable. It's by our rules, what was ratified by the membership by vote. That corporate charter is the results of tribal resolution number 11, and it has a description in 1936 of our business procedures and such. But right there, what they ratified was there'd be the no sale or mortgage of tribally owned land. I have one, and it's done with a 1956 public law. There is no amendments to this corporate charter. So this council, divisional lands, the Secretary of the Interior, the superintendent, nobody can grant you or any other lending financial institution a mortgage to our property. I have one. There's probably several others. But for 8 years, I've been waiting since 2015. And they haven't brought me to court. I'm still sitting on the same property now in the same house with no lease, because the lease got canceled in 2008. But when the banker took what was supposed to be a HUD 184 loan to begin with. And the person I was talking to, she disappeared. We talked on a Thursday, and she said, I think I got this figured out. Come by at 10 o'clock Monday. 10 o'clock Monday came, I went in. The woman told me that that lady had Friday afternoon cleaned out her desk and she's not coming back. So I figured it was over. A couple weeks later, the new bank guy came in. Then he starts calling me, we need to finish this loan. And this is 2008 when deregulation happened. Fannie Mae and all that went crazy. But anyway, he takes the HUD 184 loan that I started with this other person, changed it to a 2-year conventional uninsured mortgage with a balloon payment, which I didn't understand what none of it was. So when he did that and he paid off housing, because my house, where I'm at now, was part of a mutual homeowner program through the Salish Kootenai Housing Authority. It was like a rent-to-own house. So when the bank changed the loan and they paid off Salish Kootenai Housing Authority, then Salish Kootenai Housing Authority had to cancel the lease I had with them, because it doesn't become an actual home site lease for the homeowner until the house is paid off. So when the house got paid off by this loan, this 2-year unconventional uninsured mortgage, when it got paid off, then the lease got canceled. And I have a letter from in 2005, 3 years before this happened, that when the house got paid off, I would be sent to Division of Lands here to get a home site lease in my own name. Well, that never happened, because when Eagle Bank did that loan and the lease got canceled in 2010, when the 2 years was up, the banker calls me up and says, "Do you have $52,000 today?" And I said, "No," because like I said, I didn't understand the balloon payment deal. First time, I lost my first time homeowners thing because of this here loan that he put in place of the HUD 184. So I'm going, "What are you talking about?" So then he starts explaining it to me.
Sonny, I'm sorry, Sonny, but I'm gonna have to cut you off. You're getting into
Anyway,
details.
This canceled home site lease was taken and transferred from Eagle Bank to itself, and then sold to Bank Two, and now Chickasaw has it.
Yep. Thanks, Sonny. A little too much in. Go ahead, Rick.
Mr. Chair, I just want to say I think there's actually some valuable insights into the challenges. You know, the process Sonny was describing is complicated in a way that you just don't see outside of Indian country. And I think I'll make sure that our conversation at Eagle Bank can touch on some of those challenges. And I think at this point, we're as frustrated with how to solve the issue as anybody else. So you guys look smart. Would love to have you noodle on it a little bit.
Looks can be deceiving, but we'll try.
It's a very complicated history, and that's what I mean is that if things can be simplified and access can be easier, and yeah, it's when you can get in the mud so easy in these topics.
It's and maybe to add on to that, it's complicated. And then in Washington, you've got lots of different agencies that have a hand in the pot. And one thing that can really help is, to the extent that there are successes, this is one of my fears, is that there are successes. There are times when people figure things out. Others just don't know about it. Like, we need to be able to find a way to identify those, learn from them, and just get that word out so that others, including ourselves, can kind of build those into so we're not relearning these things. We're not reinventing that every single time. I think it's one of the challenges. And CSKT is a relative. I have a feeling you have more successes than others. Is my understanding. And if there's like a secret sauce, some examples, we'd love to kind of learn. And we're here. We're going to be meeting with a number of folks, and we're hoping to just absorb some of that as the day progresses. But that's, yeah.
Go ahead, Len.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council, and once again, welcome and thank you for taking the time to visit with us this morning. I was doing a little bit of research on comptrolling, and one of the issues that caught my attention was providing financial literacy. I think it's extremely important that we look at seeing what type of, trainings are available for our young people. As many of you, if you may or may not know, when our tribal members, get at the young age of 18, they receive a substantial amount of money. And, many of them do not understand the concept of investment, investing in your future. And so I think this may be an opportunity for us to engage and look at getting that service enhanced and getting out to our membership here, because that's a very huge issue right now. And so thank you for being here this morning.
So just a quick response on that. So we do have a financial literacy focus. And just last week, I happened to visit an organization called Junior Achievement, JA. They have facilities all over the country. I'm not sure where the nearest one is to here. It's a place, and it's really geared towards kids, middle school, high school. And it's pretty impressive. I mean, they run them through exactly what you're talking about, and it's a simulated exercise. And we're trying to, again, find these areas where these things are successful, they can scale. And I'm wondering if there's a way, we'll put you in touch with some of our folks, because that's just one of many examples where there's both materials. Kids don't like to read stuff. If you throw a book at them, they're going to ignore it. They need something a bit more engaging to learn that. And I know that those challenges are similar also on military bases, where very similar. They're young and they accumulate money, and they just don't know what to do with it. And sometimes they get into trouble. And so trying to get that on the right path. There may be some other things we can kind of bring to bear on that particular issue.
Shane?
Yeah, so just hearing that discussion, that getting tribal members into homes has been a barrier in years past. But 25 USC 5135 is allowed. That's kind of how things have happened over time, is statutes have had to come into play to be able to allow properties to be mortgaged in trust status. So there are laws in place for those things, but those things have all kind of been patchworked over time a lot. So, but those are areas we'd like to discuss more. And one other thing I think would be really good to mention is, as you drove in here, you can probably see that there's a lot of agricultural land. So there's a lot of folks that are, preferring or that own farms and ranches, or would like to go into the farming and ranching industries. And so that's another place that I think we'd like to talk to with you all later today when we meet with some of our other folks. But I know that there's several of our council members on here who are in the farming and ranching industry, or have been at some point in their life in different areas. And I know that it's really important to them and a lot of our community members. And Mr. Chair, if it's okay, I don't want to make sure that the rest of our group introduces themselves so that we're not leaving any of them out, because we do have some really great guests that are going to be taking along with us today and doing our meeting. So if that's okay, I'll
Absolutely.
pass this around to everybody and have them introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about what they do, and then we can come back, and if there's any other thoughts that come to mind, maybe we can end on some follow-up thoughts if there are any, and make our way to our next meeting.
Good. Thank you, Shane.
Hi, I'm Maddie Albert. I work on housing and banking issues for Senator Tester in Missoula.
Hello, thank you for having us today. My name is Lauren Oppenheimer, and I'm here from Washington, D.C., and I am the Chief of Staff at the OCC. Thanks.
Good morning. Thanks for hosting us today. My name's Amy Klein. I'm the Associate Deputy Comptroller for the West Region of the OCC. In that capacity, I oversee most of the Western states, including 8 of our field offices.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the council. My name is Melanie Hall. Works quite a bit with Senator Morgio, and he has sponsored bills for us before in his work as a legislator. Our office oversees Eagle Bank, which is owned by CSKT, and I think they do a wonderful job, and I think the staff there is very committed to the tribe and to economic development in this area. So thank you for having us.
Good morning. I'm Rick Enos, the Executive Officer for the Tribes, and again, thank you all for coming. We make the trip back to DC, so we know how challenging it can be. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Ron Catlett. I'm the
Maybe have you guys introduce, the mic went off though, so they might not have heard.
Good morning again. I'm Kathy Holmes. I'm a Community Affairs Officer in the OCC's West Region. Thank you.
Ron Catlett from Senator Dane's office.
They know you now, Ron, so.
Lisa Shorts, Director of Administration for the tribe.
Good morning. I'm Patricia Hibbler. I'm the Director of Tribal Member Services.
Good morning. My name is Shannon Ward. I'm the Chief Lending Officer at Native American Bank based in Denver, Colorado. I'm a Northern Arapaho tribal member. For those that aren't familiar with Native American Bank, we're a nationally chartered, mission-based organization that has the primary focus of promoting economic development on reservations. So it's my pleasure to be here. Happy to circulate my card. Thanks.
We went to high school together, so I should make Marianne. And actually, yeah, you should introduce yourself, Marianne.
I'm Marianne Addison. I'm a reporter for the Charcusta News.
Peter Matz, U.S. Senator John Tester's Native American liaison.
And I think everybody's introduced, you guys all met Sunny a little bit ago, so. Yep.
Go ahead, Shane. You done? Yeah, no, not yet, Sonny.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think if there's any other comments, one other thing that just came to mind is we were walking around is I know that there has been instances in the past where members have experienced predatory lending, which I think is a big issue, especially it continues to kind of circulate and come back, rear its head quite often. So, I've talked to a tribal member at one point who had a auto loan around 26% interest rate. So as soon as they had discussed that with me, I said, you go and sell that car or go to another bank and refinance that. So so that does happen to people, not necessarily always in this local area. Some people will go to north or south to some of the other cities located here and try and get loans there because sometimes they can't, for whatever reason, maybe a credit history or something, they can't get a loan from another bank. So that sets them up for failure with predatory lenders.
So I'm glad you raised that. This is a complicated issue because what tends to happen is the pendulum just swings back and forth. So you have predatory lending, and then regulatory agencies, enforcement authorities put some enforcement actions on, and then there's just there's an absence. And then you have a lack of services. You have a lack of access. You talked, Chairman, about fair access. So you have to have access. So you need access to responsible products. How do we get that? So we've been trying to think through ways of, well, the objective is financial health. That's what we want for our communities. You want them to be financially healthy. You want them to have income, to spend that in the right way, to be able to borrow, but not borrow too much, to be able to save. And we need some ways to measure that. And so for that, we need a lot of stakeholder engagement. We need to know from your perspective, what is healthy? We can make it up in DC, but that's not going to be good. It would be much better if you come forward and say, in our communities, this is what we need. This is what we see as a healthy way to establish, financial foundations so people can grow. Because without that, you're just kind of you're on a hamster wheel, and then you get, the predatory lending, and then you have no access to any credit. Like it just tends to bounce back and forth between that, especially for communities, for tribal communities, for vulnerable communities, and that's not a great place to be. So that's something else we're working on. And we have lots of areas for ideas and engagement, and our doors are open. I just want to make that's one of my messages here. That our doors are open. We're constantly looking for feedback, ideas, thoughts, complaints, anything like that. That's all very helpful to us.
Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You talk about financial health, and consider you in your life, you've built your assets, your life, all that you have. Consider that the almighty federal government decides in your best interest, they're going to take 85% of those assets and give them away to your neighbors, and then put you into life situation. That's where tribal people are. That's where they've been for a long time, and they've had to try to dig out of that hole. Something that's been hard.
The history is shameful. I always use that word. And I think I recognize it. I think there are a lot of folks who do recognize it. And that's part of what motivates us to come here today, to talk to you, to want to atone for that and do the right thing. And now we have our authorities. We have the things that we can do within our authorities. We have to operate within that. But I will say that's something we recognize. That's something I recognize that's part of the equation as we approach this.
Recently, we're here in our area, economic development, thing that's been very successful, apparently very successful, is the legalization of marijuana and the advancements of that industry, and whether it's grow operations in agriculture or it's medical marijuana or recreational marijuana endeavors. And we've had quite a few of our memberships ask about getting into that. And so there's a whole collage of limiting factors for us, being on trust property and federal laws and of course banking laws that are limiting factors. So there is that dramatic need here for that. I don't know if there's any fixes you would be able to do there, unfortunately, but maybe, I don't know. But it's certainly something that you see it, it's incredible opportunity for us if we were to engage in that, or our membership would. Shane?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, that's a really good point. I think economically we're at a disadvantage a lot of times, or we're playing catch up with folks because of rules and regulations, and that's a really good example of how Montana has legalized that, and it still remains illegal at the federal level, which makes it very challenging for the tribes or tribal members to feel comfortable going into that particular industry. Meanwhile, the state's raking in money. Montana's biggest industry is tourism. I think it's around an $8 billion industry yearly or annually. So, there's a lot of money there, and there's a lot of tourists that come through the state of Montana. And as you know, Glacier Park's just down the road. And so we're sort of in that hub there where a lot of people come through. So we're missing out on some of those sorts of opportunities for economic development and jobs for tribal members.
So this is an issue we track pretty closely. We don't have the authority to change the law. Congress has to do that. The good news is there is a bill. The SAFE Act has been going through several efforts to kind of get that across the finish line. We've been tracking that closely, and we get consulted on it from time to time. And it would be good to align federal and state law on this topic, and then that just eases a lot of things, as you noted.
Thank you, Mike. All right. I think you guys are on schedule to move on. So
Yeah.
I don't think so. Sonny, your comments get too deep in the mud and these guys have a tight agenda. We want to make sure that they hit all of our enterprises and folks.
Mr. Chair, just really quickly, our schedule today is meeting with you, going to, CSKT Housing Authority, and then meeting with Tribal Credit there as well. We'll have some conversations, there, and then we'll go up to SNK Technologies, and have a lunch meeting there. You all are, welcome to come and attend. Would love to have you. The OCC has, graciously sponsored that lunch today for us. So, and Kenny's Catering is doing that for us today. So, and then from there, we'll go to Eagle Bank, and then we'll go to meet with EKI. We really wanted them to kind of see how CSKT has to really diversify our portfolio for our long-term vision to support the membership and the government and all the services that come along with the work that we do. So, and then kind of open up some of those discussions in all those areas that we just brought up. So, so we're hoping it'll be a good day. And if any of you want to come and hike up and down the dam stairs. It's open for 2 more weeks, I believe, before they do an overhaul. So we kind of sneaking in there really quick before they do that big maintenance out there. So, and that's at 3:30. So if you wanted to meet us out there, all of that's in the packets that we sent you with the agendas and the bios and everything. So.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you for coming again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Great meeting you all.
And
Likewise. Appreciate
one
it.
last thing, Mr. Chair, I do want to say that Amar and Barry and the staff members, made this, he said some kind words, but they made it very easy for us. They're very organized and helped organize the schedule for us. So made our meeting, the days, calendar and agenda, putting that together made it very smooth. So I appreciate them.
Much appreciated.
Absolutely. Thank you, Amar.
Thank
Michael,
you all.
Barry,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, you want a photo? Okay.
Yeah.
Quick photo? Okay.
Yeah. Who knows what they got on their computers?
Thank you. Travel safe. Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break. 5-minute break. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Okay, Jeannie's up. She's not gonna be in person. She's on.
Okay, she's zooming. Okay.
Yep.
Jeannie, go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Great to see you. Y'all look wonderful.
We got a group shot of us. We get to see you though.
Oh, how lucky.
Looking good.
So, thank you for fitting me into your day. I come before you as I have every year for many years to request permission to apply for continuation funding for the early childhood services, which is Head Start and Early Head Start. So if you could approve our request to submit a renewal grant application. And this grant application is for the annual funding of the program. And we'll receive a little bit of money for COLA and quality improvement. Every year, they try to give us a little bit for COLA and for quality improvement funds. And this is the way that our base amount grows. So we are asking to serve 77 3 to 5 year olds and 90 0 to 3 year olds. So this is something we work through every year. So I would appreciate it if you would approve this submittal of the renewal grant.
Terry? Motion by Terry to approve the grant resolution. Second by Ellie. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, show of hands. Unanimous.
Thank you so much.
Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have two resolutions here to take care of that. I believe that takes care of the major one.
Yes.
I'll make the motion on the second one for the COLA with the amendment of the be it further resolved that the tribal, where did that go? Be it further resolved that the tribal council chairwoman and or her designated representative gets edited.
Yes, I have one that says chairman.
The main one does say chairman. The one on the COLA says chairwoman. We can fix that.
Okay.
That I make that motion to accept that.
Thank you, Mike.
And I will take care of that.
Motion by Mike. Second by, nope. I see what you're talking about. Yeah, one does say chairwoman, the other one says chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Ellie.
Just a couple of typo corrections in the whereas. There's E's missing on 2 of them.
Okay, I thought those had been corrected. But I will make sure that they're corrected. I thought that Jen had received the corrections, but I'll triple check and make sure that those are corrected and that it is no longer chairwoman.
Thank you, Jeannie. Motion by Mike, approve resolution with corrections. Second by Jimmy. Any further discussion? See none, all those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, Jeannie.
Yes, thank you very much and have a great day.
All right. We will move into executive session for Bishop Valley Power Board. Okay. Which one you want to hit first?
The first item we would like to recommend for your approval is a request to the administrator of Bonneville Power Administration to permanently remove the Hellroying resource from Mission Valley Power's total retail load.
Motion by Ellie to approve the request to permanently remove the Hellroying resource letter to John Harrison, the administrator of Bonneville Power Administration. Second by Mike. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you. The second item is a similar letter to the Bonneville Power Administration. In your packet, it's on page 25, and this is a request to temporarily remove the Boulder Hydro resource from the Mission Valley Power's total retail load.
Motion by Len to approve the letter to Administrator John Harrison of Bonneville Power Administration to temporarily remove the Boulder Hydro resource. Second by Mike. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Teresa, was this Boulder Hydro, was it damaged by the fire, or is it quite damaged from the cleanup? Because it says cleanup there, and it also says the fire. So I was just wondering which caused more damage.
That's a really good question, Bing. I've talked to the gentleman who's in charge of the facility, and he mentioned that it was damaged during the cleanup. So, but he also mentioned that the age of the equipment there is making it difficult to find replacement parts. And the reason we do temporary on Boulder Hydro is that we do know that he is looking for different grants and funding sources to maybe seek funding to repair that facility. And we made the commitment that we would also share grant information with them. So it's a temporary removal while they try to get it fixed.
We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? See none, all those in favor? Unanimous.
The third item, Mr. Chairman, council members, the third item is the tribal comment on the regional dialogue policy to expand the definitions of those utilities that can qualify and benefit from Tier 1 rates. And if authorized today, we will submit this to the Bonneville email before the deadline tomorrow.
Motion by Mike. Second by Ellie. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you.
Good job.
Good job, you guys.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Gordon. Craig, Janine, thank you. Mike, thank you. Yep. Thank you. Melissa, you need executive session? Okay, we'll move into executive session. Executive. Got it all built yet? You know it, everything.
We're ready, Chairman?
I think so, yeah, Bing will be just in here a second, but go ahead.
Okay.
Get
Well,
started.
we can wait for him if you want.
No, he was just with us.
He might have had to go use the gentleman's room.
I think that might be it. Oh, yeah. Well, go ahead and get started.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of council. Today, I'm here to talk about, this is a follow-up, back in February. I asked you guys for permission to proceed with a materials procurement bid. So that's where we go out. In this case, we're asking for the owner of the project, which is CSKT, to procure materials in advance of the project, somewhat to get a better price to consolidate. You know, this Jocko Canals project was for 6 phases, so consolidate all the phases, get it all bought at once. There's some, you know, all the good ways to get a discount, right? So here I want to talk to you guys today about the results of that. The bids were due last Monday. We reviewed them last week with Morris and Merrily, and they summarized it all in a kind of a recommendation on how to move forward with the bids. This is the bid quantities that you'll see here. These are all the pages. It's showing you just the items that we bid. Lots of stuff. I was gonna be a smart ass about it. And say Mr. Bing's Big Matt's backyard, but we've got a couple sites. One of them, I think we've talked to Mr. Kevin Thomas because his property sits on the corner of White Coyote and March Road. It's easy to get into off the highway to unload and do a loop back out. But that isn't final yet. Mr. Thomas hasn't agreed to that. To give you an idea, we did look at some backup sites. Some potential backup sites are actually the powwow grounds and the rodeo grounds. The parcel that the 5th camp sits on has some areas that, you know, those kind of sites. We looked at predominantly tried to focus on some tribal ground or tribal trusts, so individual trust properties. But the problem with, you know, powwow grounds, I think you guys all know well, we'd have to then truck every day. The trucks would have to go down through McLeod across the bridge or go around the highway. And there's a safety factor there in my mind. To get it to the construction where they're going to be putting it in the ground, there's these additional risks. And a lot of the locals, you know, that voice their opinions, Mr. Tom Tanner, especially on this one, you know, Mark's McLeod is a kind of a dangerous bridge. If there's a kind of a lot of blind stuff there and you're pulling these 55-foot joints down through there on a trailer, and just kind of congestion for the locals. So, so we tried to move on the north side, tried to find a spot. I took Chairman McDonald's advice from last week, and we're inquiring at the availability of some other property as well.
Okay. Go ahead, Lam.
Jay, just a comment and a suggestion. We do have a tribal member security firm that's part of that's on the Indian preference list that we may want to consider using when we start staging
this equipment, because this equipment's gonna be sitting there for quite a while, you know? So just something to think about.
Yeah, no, that's a really good, point, and I appreciate that advice, yeah.
Yeah, I think they're the only security, firm on the list.
Yes, and so typically in this type of situation in my past, you would have some type of security to kind of monitor the site. You know, block gates, you know, we will fence it off in a pattern, so nobody can just kind of have unvetted easy access. And then when you're moving loads in and out, there's truck traffic, you would have security from there to ensure the security of the site. So the truck gets unloaded and everybody leaves, and there's nobody like, you know, the interesting thing with this pipe is it's kind of one of them materials that, if somebody were to jack a piece of 48 inch by 55 feet long, it's going to be very visible. There's, you know, nobody on the reservation or really in Western Montana uses that pipe. This is kind of a first of its kind project in Western Montana, actually. So it'd be easier to find than PVC. It's kind of.
So what kind of acreage are you talking about? What's the footprint?
We need about 6.5 acres, so I'll round up to 7. Yeah, and that, we followed the Plastic Institute for Pipe, or Plastic Institute for Pipe, yeah, the PIP, specs, and, they tout a pilot and everything, and we came up with it's like 6.5 acres, so round up to 7, maybe call it 8. Because you always need a little more room than what you think you need. But yeah, that laid out how the pattern in which you should, you know, the piles should be, how high, how, you know, the 48 inch, you can't stack it one on top of the other, even just too high. They want it all laid on the ground because of yeah, it was interesting. Yeah. You know, the things I've seen, company came up and I said, well, I've seen them do it that way, but that's not the way you're supposed to do it. So,
This is the pipe that's going to be buried, right?
yes, ultimately it'll be a minimum of 3 feet below ground. Yeah.
They're that sensitive, huh?
Yeah, that's what but it's more about, they weigh so much if you put them, you know, stack them like you do round bills sometimes, it'll push down. So you have to constantly have that next joint against it. So I'm not, the forward I sent on, Monday or Tuesday is not there. I'm gonna forward this to you real fast, Jennifer. And then you could share it. So we had, just give you guys kind of a, you know, a 10,000 foot overview. We had, we emailed out to 7 or 8 firms that have a regional or nationwide exposure to procuring materials of this sort. And in the case of, we got 2 bids. We thought we'd get 4. We had everybody showed some interest, but four of the solicitors showed more than normal, you know, kind of like, hey, we're really going to submit a bid. Only 2 came in, 2 bids from ISCO and then Core and Maine. And so Core and Maine's, they got a big shop in Missoula. They're all over the state. They bought out a couple regional suppliers that kind of got, they're nationwide, a supplier of things related to plumbing, water lines, you know, so we got 2 bids. The here you see table 1. We have the engineer's estimate in the first column. That was what we were basing kind of some of our assumptions on, based on some market analysis we did 9 months to 10 months ago. And then Core and Maine's bid and is there in the second column, and ISCO's bid is in the third column. If you notice, there's 4 schedules. So the first schedule is just pipe, the HDPE pipe for the 6 phases of the Jocko Canals conversion project. And then the schedule B is all the fittings. So that's like the flange valves, anything fittings related involving the pipe schedule. Schedule C is actually a special order. It's pipe for the 9. Sod's going to do a 9 pipes project, so we needed a lighter walled HDPE pipe. So we put that in a special schedule. It's got a different delivery timeline than the rest of the pipe in Schedule A. And then Schedule D is all the valving for the Jocko Canals project. So there's some 48-inch valves. There's a lot of 24 and 30-inch valves. We tried to design it so when we had to buy valves for isolation, we bought smaller valves instead of bigger valves. As you can see here, so we only had two engineers' estimates on two product lines because generally it's the math. Most of the cost is in the pipe, not in the fittings or the valves. Core and Main bid all 4 schedules. ISCO only bid the first 3, A, B, and C. And we did an evaluation. And, we looked through it all. We also part of what they had to submit was where the pipe is coming from, and I don't know if they specified here. They don't. A fair bit of it on the Core and Main bid is coming from Sunnyside, Washington, and part of my attempt, and the remainder is coming from Kingman, Arizona, which is down on the west side of Arizona. For those that don't know, ISCO's pipe was coming from Cedar City, Utah, which is very southern Utah, and Mills, Wyoming, which is a suburb of Casper. And so the low bid was Core and Main. If we factor in the trucking miles, the low bid is still Core and Main. We did look at that to see if there was a variance, if ISCO's bids using assumption of $4.50 to $5 a loaded mile, Core and Main still has the low bid. So the recommendation, just based on, that was really the only one we did the detailed analysis on. But because schedules B, C, and D are actually delivered prices, the recommendation of myself and with Morris Merrily is to give schedule A and D to Core and Main and schedule B and C to ISCO. And functionally, those are the low bids for each one of those schedules.
Go ahead, Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Have you discussed, do any of those outfits deliver?
They will. We told them we did not want pipe delivered. The Core and Main actually gave an additional number to deliver all the pipe in Schedule A. But our intent was to, and still is to, now that we know where it's coming from, I'm going to start to advertise in the Charcusta and solicit tribal IPO. Melinda with the IPO office will send out an email next week to all the tribal vendors or contractors on the list to try to solicit and see who's interested and where they, we know the location, Sunnyside and Kingman, assuming if we accept Core and Main's bid, and how much they will charge per loaded per mile. We've got the mile from the plant to our crossroads on Martin and White Coyote. And so basically, here's the mileage. What will you charge us per that mile? So a loaded mile bid with the mileage specified. And that was my hope. It's quite a few loads. It's like 148 or something, 152 or something. So it's a fairly big undertaking. So, hopefully we can spread it out, get a few tribal members with some trucks, flatbeds, hauling some pipe this summer. I will say if we don't get any interest, I'll probably be coming back in 4 weeks and asking you to proceed with the bid, with Core and Main's trucking bid.
Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Geez, how come the engineers' estimates are so much higher than the bids?
They were based on kind of a market assessment we did. We got some pricing on a few pipe sizes. So HDP is actually kind of priced by the poundage, and it's industrial specs from PIP, the Plastic and Plastic Pipe Institute. So we knew how much weight, we knew what it cost per foot. The market came down, honestly, and I was hoping that would happen, and it did. I think we're still seeing when the price of crude got in the 60s, this is still reminiscent. A lot of these guys went out and bought a bunch of resin to make this kind of pipe, and so they secured it. I think we're in a really advantageous time to do this. So yeah, if we'd have done this 18 months ago, or whenever oil was above 100, that 7.3 million, I think at that time we were closer to 10.
And that's why for a while I was touting some pretty big numbers, but if we can secure this by there's 5 or 6 million in savings to the tribe just in material costs compared to where we were 18 months ago. So sometimes being slow of foot is beneficial.
Any other questions? Like the low bids or the recommendation? Shipping will be the responsibility of our tribal vendors. We're spreading this out economically.
That's the plan. If we don't have any interest, I'll, if there's a situation where somebody says I can haul 50 loads, but I can't haul 150, we only have one interested, tribal contractor, I'll come back. I'll come back to you guys. But you will start seeing stuff in the Charcusta, Melinda with IPO, start spreading the word. So what I'm looking for is the permission to award Schedule A and D to Core and Main, and Schedule B and C to ISCO, and then proceed with the trucking procurement of trucking from tribal contractors.
All right, permission to go with the low bids. Basically.
Yeah.
Normal protocol. And tribal vendors for shipping. Any questions? It's like Jason's done his due diligence. Can't make more people bid on it. And we're capturing a cost benefit right now. So
yes, I honestly was quite impressed or shocked, I should say.
it is a good deal.
Yeah, this is really good. Much lower than I had.
Motion by Mike to approve the recommendation to go with the low bids for the supplies for the Jocko project. Second by Jimmy. Any further discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of council. Thank you for.
Thank you, Jace. Good job.
Yeah, thank you guys.
I'm glad it came in lower. That's good.
Me too. Wish we could order the next 10 years right now, but maybe prices will get lower. And
Just one trivia question then is when you look at the Core and Main and ISCO, is that all manufactured in the United States or is it manufactured elsewhere and coming?
yeah,
Even the Yuma stuff is?
the resin.
The Yuma
Oh,
plant.
yeah. So it's the interesting thing on HDP is it's some of the resin pellets may come from an international refinery, like Hysun, South Korea. There's a huge SNK whatever group. They're a big South Korean firm. They built refrigerators for a long time, industrial machine. But so you may get some of these little resin pellets, but they come in and there's just these little pellets. And then they melt them and then extrude them and basically turn it back into this liquid plastic and extrude it through a machine. And it basically makes the tube and it cools it, and that's the tube you have. And then that's why when I think Mr. Malater has seen it, but they heat them up and then slam them together and they called it welding, but it's really just a hot plate between the two pieces of plastic. And they push them together and then you hold a certain force on them for a certain amount of time. And that's called, it's as strong or stronger than the pipe, very much like welding steel when it's done right. But typically the resin, like Corpus Christi, Texas, makes about 80% of the resin used in the United States. Those little resin balls. So there's a huge complex there that makes that specifically the byproducts from other refineries. So I had a chance to tour that at one time, so that's why I know. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
So yeah, very much, almost 100% American made product.
Good job.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. All right. Perfect timing, Tara. David. You are. Congratulations on the new baby. You naming him Tom? Is that it? No? Thomas? Okay. Oh, really?
Oh, is it in the? Is that right here? Where at? I think it is.
Hey, Mark, one question about the, Joe Claremont's, lease down at Buffalo Bridge. That's just in his name, or does he have, is there more people in that one?
Oh, there's a, yeah.
His, okay.
We're gonna start on page 50. So good afternoon, Tribal Council and Mr. Chairman. So we're gonna start on page 50. This is a fire bid for advertisement. This was brought in before Land Committee, for discussion. There's 5 sites that will be advertised, and we're just looking for approval to put this in the newspaper.
So the goal was get ahead of this, and we're gonna get ahead of it. Motion by Len to approve option 1 to advertise the 2023 firework bid packet. ASAP. Second by Ellie. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous.
All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Carol. Rachel might only come up.
Tara.
Sorry. Just a quick question. Where are we with the Big Arm store properties?
Right now, we put it out for sovereignty. They were gonna come in and utilize it, but they decided to turn it down. They looked at it and there is quite a significant work that needs to be involved. And this was with Regina, and them. They were gonna utilize it for 6 months revocable, but they decided to go a different route. Now we're just gonna have to put it up because we haven't had anybody new come in yet, so.
Okay. All right.
So if you guys have anybody, send them my way.
I
And I
will.
know there's a lot of work that needs to be involved, but, you know, we're trying to help them, to let them know that we'll help them along the way if they need it. But any tribal members, send them our way.
Yeah, we're gonna get some people in there.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Cool. The next one that we're gonna discuss is, or talk about, Paul Hellman. Lease 4039, looking for a 5-year extension on it with his, 30 acres of improvement. He wants to disc it up and seed it, and he is not a tribal member. It is an allotment that we do own 97% of. On page 52, it gives you a little bit more description of that in the background and history.
Just for clarification again on this, is just like any other improvement lease, it's up to council's discretion on it, since we are the owners, 97% owner of it. This is, he wants to disc the pasture with a pasture mix, plant oats and barley as a nurse crop, and then go in for this other improvement. This is a good management on the land, but since he is a non-member, those ones are a little bit locking them in at the current rental at 2,000. We did get a good price for that, 30 acres. I think that's what the lease size is, isn't it? 60 acre lease. So we did get a pretty good lease price on it, but it's still up to council on that decision if they want to go with a 5-year improvement. It is going to nurse the property back in health, but the tribes themselves will not retain any kind of improvement other than the high quality of management stewardship on the project.
This is the one we talked about that, okay, they said that, okay. Huh? You might have been.
This is non-irrigated. Minimum value on this is $750 an acre. He is paying well above, and so that's where we're at on this. But recommendation on it for locking in the value of it for the rental on it and to get it nursed back in health. It is a good stewardship, but there is no improvement that we will be inheriting other than the stewardship of the land. Tribal Lands Department recommends.
Well, we do recommend that it's a good idea because of steward of the land, but there are a lot of considerations that go on in conversations that we don't know about. So if we're going off of bettering the property and looking best bang for the buck, yes, it's a good business option. But we also ultimately, number one is our membership.
And if council needs further discussion on this, we can, or they can go with option 2, deny improvement request.
Any further discussion? My argument I made in the land committee meeting, you weren't here, Mike, sorry. It's not, there's no doubt that they're recommending this guy's got a good operation. It's the other contexts that are troubling. It's a good operation on this land, but there's other considerations of an activity that's also going on other tribal lands. Could be. I just, I know where I'm going to be. I'm going to be option 2. That's just me. The rest of you can vote for it, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, it would stay his, and then he would just have the opportunity to go for it. So.
Motion by Mike to go with option 2. Second by Len. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous?
The next one is our 2023 bid approvals. So we might want to go into executive for that.
Okay, we'll move into executive session for this discussion. Okay, we have our spring 2023 ag lease recommendations from Lands Department for consideration. Options will be approve the land staff recommendations. Option 2 would be to deny the recommendations. Option 3 would to be delay decision at this point in time. How would council like to proceed? Entertain a motion? Yeah, go ahead, Bing.
After all this, we're not, I'd like to go with option 3 and just hold off. And see what's gonna happen with Joel and possibly an easement or something that he might have to get from the landowner that he might have to cross. So I just sooner wait for a little bit myself.
With a motion? Motion for option 3 to delay the approval of the spring 2023 ag leases until additional information comes forward. Is there a second? Second by Jimmy. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Show of hands. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 1 abstention, 1 negative myself. Terry's abstaining. Art. Oh, Jennifer, I missed that. Jennifer, okay, 6-4. 1 abstention, Terry, and 1 no. That'd be myself. All right, have to come back in, get some more information. Thank you.
Will do.
Yep, go ahead, Bing.
Before you leave, Mark, is there any further updates on the Big Sam property? Land exchange.
The individuals are working on it right now still. They found all the files and stuff. There is a little bit of, there is some ownership issues because it's some of that property is his, some of it is not. So we have to narrow it down to scope and talk with him again on that, exactly what he wants to exchange and how to do it. So they're working on it, but they have a backlog of stuff right now. So they're working as fast as they can to catch up and learning the process. So they're working overtime on it. So that's where we're at.
All right, Mark, you have one more thing for us?
I believe 1, maybe 2's on here. I have a request for a temporary closure of burned area for management and 2 contract approvals that I would like to go into the contract approval stuff first. The contract approvals are 2 sole source, really. One of them was hired on Manny Marquez, Manny the plumber, who did some emergency work for us out at the Black Bear Ranch when we found out we had some broken water lines and some issues out there. But he was also the one who was requested to come down and do an assessment and do some work down at the Arley Paddle Grounds. We need to get him under contract so we can get him paid. We went through contracts and grants. They said we had to come into council and get sole source or get the 3 bids, but we already have him under emergency contract because he was the only one available at the time to deal with the water issue out at Black Bear. So we would like to have approval for Manny to become a sole source contract with us for this, for remainder of this year and all of next year. So go through September 30th, 2024. Right? Yeah.
Any questions from council? Motion by Land to approve the sole source contract for plumbing services to Manny Marquez for the next
Year and a half.
Second by Bing. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Show of hands.
The next contract approval is for Nick Hogan. He is a certified appraiser. When we tried to get him under contract last year, when we brought on all the other certified appraisers in here to do the trust appraisals, trust land appraisals, he was with a different corporation, but he started out on his own and we needed to get a contract with him under contracts and grants procurement and contracting. Policy is that we need 3 bids, but we already have the other contractors, the appraisers already under contract with us for the year. And we would like to sole source him also out until September 30th, 2024. Just so we can secure him as an appraiser for us. And he's readily available for us. He's semi-local, and he can get our stuff in pretty quick to get appraisals done. He's been our quickest one so far. So we would like to get him back on contract.
Utilize his services for appraisals as needed. Case by case basis.
Yeah, for his contract.
But you have another appraisal service, the provider.
Yeah, we have 3 other appraisers that we have also on contract, and we utilize all 4 of them. Yeah, but Nick's been the one that's been able to do a better, quicker turnaround so far. But we have not been able to use him this year.
Is his rate comparable or?
His rates are actually the lowest out of all 4 of them. Not by much, but they are.
Motion by Bing to approve the sole source contract for land appraisals with Nick Hogan for the next 1.5 years. Second by Len. Any further discussion? Mike?
The net one at 79, she did have it until September 23. This is what that came back down from when we originally tried to hire him on. So we would be modifying this contract to 2024 for the $5,000 this year and a $5,000 next year, so a total of a $10,000 contract. They went up there and they said that we had to put them out for bid or get sole source.
Mike, use your microphone. Is your mic on?
Use the mic. No, you're talking about a contract that goes till 2024, right?
Correct.
And the ones that I see in front of me all go to 2023.
Correct.
And
These are the ones that originally went up and we were denied. That's why we had to come in. I haven't had a chance to work with our contract person out there to get these ones updated, but
Okay.
you guys would be seeing the updated contract till 2024.
so basically the same contract until September 30th, 2024
Correct.
for $49.99.99.
$49.99.99
Okay.
with the option that we would come in for a
Okay.
modification or anything at that time to increase if we need to.
Okay.
Sorry about that, Mike.
Thanks,
I
Mike. for
actually
that.
didn't even see that part of it.
Good discussion, good clarification. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, show of hands. Unanimous? All right,
I don't know where we're at on the schedule.
road closure,
What's that?
you're gonna do,
Yeah, I don't know. Am I running long right now? From what was scheduled, Jen?
not yet.
The burned area management closure, this one is starts on page 75, and you can see some contractual work that we have in place with the burned area rehab plan that we have in place, the BAR plan. And we have some implementations that we have to do in here. The burn area right now has $1.2 million. This is the Elmo Fire burned area, has $1.2 million of reforestation that has to happen. One thing about the area while we're looking at a temporary closure is that this year for sure, not all the fencing has been upgraded since the fire. We got a lot of the highway fence for suppression done because of the emergency part of that aspect of it for security of the highway. All of the back fencing in that has not yet been completed. We have that under starting up here in the next week or 2, I believe, is when they're going to be getting on there sometime next week, because they're going to start doing that process.
That's your crew?
Our crew plus 4 individuals, I believe, out of Elmo that we picked up as temporary emergency. Can you grab that? Yeah. So here's the map of the area. This encompasses the majority, if not all of, it's almost the entire range unit 36, I believe it is. Range unit 36. There is a $1.2 million reforestation, and that's in the blue grids. As you see is where all the planting is going to be happening. And that's right where it's on the back side of the ridge. We're looking at being able to close it down for anywhere from 5 years to 7 years, so the vegetation and the planting can take. Right now, the logging has not started. That will be coming in. That's going to push them cattle all around in that area. So there is no fence to contain them. So that was one reason for part of it. We have fencing that has to be done up there of a total of about 140,000, and we'll be starting that this year. Plus, we have about $112,000 of weed management that has to be done up there and surveying. The bottom part of the flats of the fire is accessible to use right now, but those are leases. And those will still all be operational. It's just those timbered area where they're gonna be logging, a lot of trucks and everything on the road. The bigger point on this is that this has to be a longer discussion with council at a different date for any other big fires we have out here for the idling of these range unit areas for a couple of years, especially where planting is going to take place. That is a federal dollars out of the BEAR program to get the planting done, and they have to do surveys, stocking surveys, and they have to have a certain retention of the stocking they put in. And forestry will be handling all of that aspect. So they are really wanting us to try to work with our lessees, work with council to let them know that the reason we're doing this is because it's not to hinder them. It's actually to improve their grazing facilities in the future. Because that backside right now is what really got scorched, and there's no vegetation and there's no shrubbery or plant life. And this is going to help establishing it and for any erosion effects. If they do not idle that area, the cattle can get in there and they will eat off the tops of all of the new saplings. It's dessert for them. It's cotton candy. So they go right for it first. And it does hinder the operation that has been done for everything that has been out there and worked up. So we do have that. I do have a cost breakdown of the total with the infrastructure that we have out there going to be going in place. Everything that the tribes are going to be doing out there is going to be about $1.5 million worth of rehab in the area. And the loss of revenue to the tribes for the 5-year shutdown or a 7-year shutdown is, the 5-year shutdown is $45,000 a year in revenue, or 62,000 roughly, respectively, in a 7-year shutdown. So we are looking really at trying to shut it down just so we can maintain and recoup the resources up there for the tribes for future. So our recommendation from lands would be, and from the BEAR team itself, was to see if we can shut and have this idled for a 5 to 7 year period, depending on which term the council wanted to go with.
Terry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if this area will be producing much for mushrooms, but I was wondering if that is the case, we maybe need to be at signage up there for non-members to stay out.
This has been a discussion with the tribal rangers, the game wardens already. and with forestry and everybody else about trying to get some signage up there that this is a tribal member only access area, and it's gonna be, I know I've talked with Orsino about it before, that they're gonna be monitoring that. Howard Walker also monitoring a lot heavier this year, just because we know there is gonna be an influx if the mushrooms start popping up, especially on the backside of the range, because it's hidden, and they can come in off reservation easier. So they will be monitoring that area heavily during the mushroom season.
Any further questions for Mark? Could we do the 5-year and see how the recovery process is working and do an extension if needed?
Yes, forestry does do surveys after the plotted, after they plant, they have to go back out and survey for, retention. And AJ is actually doing monitoring out there for the next 5 years as is. So we can do that, and we can start with a 5-year and then we can go from there.
Sounds reasonable to me. Need action then? Do you need an action for 5?
Yes, you need an action on that.
Motion by Mike to approve the 5-year temporary closure of the Elmo burned area for recovery for resources. Second by Ellie. We need further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous?
If I could sneak one other thing in that came in real quick this morning from Mr. Rick.
4 minutes.
It should be less than that. We have a easement issue from the Moise Road going out, underneath the trestle. The original easement that was under county, that's on record with the county, actually goes up and around where the existing road is. It washed out a couple times 30, 40 years ago.
Thing where Crow Creek enters the river?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, yeah, the old road footprint's still there.
Oh, yeah, where Crow Creek.
In the bridge, yeah.
Where the old road prism is there. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I went to the south side, the north side of Moise Valley Road. They have the old easement still up there. We need to do a modification to that easement to put it on the legal bearing, so we would just need a motion to modify that easement to correct their actual road prism now.
Abandon the old one
And abandon the old
the
one.
new one. Motion by Mike. Second by Terry. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? I think that's unanimous also.
Well, I got 3 more minutes.
No, by golly, we got a 3-minute break coming our way by.
No, that's all we had, and I thank you guys, and we will be reaching out to the individual, and we will be coming back in with more information shortly.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we need more information on at least 1261. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, we will move into executive session, but we'll take a quick 3-minute break.